when I was announced, when the Mrs. South Africa said, congratulations, Carol, you are one of the Mrs. South Africa semi-finalists. So the entire South Africa, there were these 100 women, and you are one of the 100 women that were selected. I was, like I said, I wanted to run at that time because I felt inadequate. Like, no, Carol, umzalwane, married, costume in the middle, everywhere. What's on earth?
Hello everyone, and welcome to yet another episode of That's Funny. Today we are joined by a very special guest. I'm talking about Mrs. South Africa finalist 2022, Mrs. Carol Montwedi, who will be competing on the 11th of November 2022. So do make sure that you check out the show notes and the description box to find out a little bit more about her journey and how you can support her. This conversation is going to blow your mind away. I literally sat there with goosebumps the entire time. She was walking us through her journey of teenage pregnancy, going back in adulthood and finishing her matric, all the way up until her Miss South Africa journey, finding herself and navigating insecurities. I really think that it's a conversation that every single person can not only relate to, but really be inspired by, because she is a woman of incredible wisdom. That's just what I'm going to say. I'm going to say wisdom. But yes, without further ado, let's get into this week's podcast episode.
So there's also something that you said that reminded me. I don't know if you've had a chance to read Becoming by Michelle Obama. I haven't read it, but I watched the documentary on Netflix because I'm that girl. I'm like, let me suss it out first on Netflix. And then if the documentary is good, I'll hop into the book. So there's a particular part where she speaks about how if older people who appear more successful don't show their failures and are not open about their journey and how they got there, then for us, we look at that and it's like, I will never be as perfect as Mrs. Montwedi. Like, I will never be able to raise kids the way that she has been able to raise kids. So I really love the fact that you actively wake up every day and it's like, my social media platform is going to be a place where people can see the journey of how I go from being this person in one season to becoming the, Mrs. South Africa 2023.
I think we continuously are becoming, are growing, are learning. Even when we are older and you would assume that, everything is hunky-dory and, they're successful and they've got all of that. But we are still, learning and growing. And especially for me on the Mrs. South Africa platform, I mean, if I were to tell you from the very beginning, when I entered the journey and I tell you that I was insecure, I tell you that, listen, I didn't feel confident. I actually wanted to run.
Really?
Yeah. Me. I mean, we're going to share about this. I cannot wait to show the picture, the submission of my video when I was entering Mrs. South Africa and the woman that I am today. It's like two different worlds. Sometimes you will see what you see from outside, but the intricate details of what is going on inside of this woman who is becoming in her own right, even at that time, at whatever place that she finds herself, that she's also just, becoming, which is why I'm so passionate about telling about my story. It's to give some sense of reality of that, life happens, even when it seems rosy, but life does happen. And where you are at doesn't necessarily define who you are. There is something inside of you that is so strong that you can overcome and become everything that you want to be. And I think when you see the success, it is possible. For you, it should be a message of saying that it is possible. Girl, you can. Especially when it comes to raising children. I always say that where I have, reached, they should go a little bit higher than what I have done. If they achieve the same things that I have achieved, then something is wrong, Carol. You haven't really, because I think the triumph and whatever that I have achieved, they should go, it should be a stepping stone for them, not where they start. It should be literally a stepping stone for them to achieve even much more bigger. So when you see what you would assume is success and whatnot, this girl is also still becoming as well. But then I think she is a witness, right? A witness to you to say that you can. If she can, you can. And I think that's what, Michelle Obama is really writing about, that you are on this journey for as long as there's breath in you. It doesn't matter whether you're 80 years old, you can still, be on that journey of learning, of rediscovering something that you've known. And I think that is just a mystery about who we are, that you will never know that you have the capacity to become this big until you are in there, and then
you take that leap of faith.
And then and trust the process. really trust the process and just know that I'm here where I am because God wanted me here right now. Yeah.
And so how did you get to the point where you were like, okay, now we're entering? Because now you're speaking about process, and in my head I'm like, how long have you been thinking about entering Mrs. South Africa? Because I actually was shocked when you did it.
Yes.
Yeah.
I said it, I think, on the year that my daughter was getting married. It was 2020, December.
2020, yeah.
In 2020, December, when I saw Mrs. Tenjiwe Mdluli on Instagram as Mrs. South Africa, when I looked at her, for me, I felt like, this girl is very shy. But it seems like she was talking about the journey on Mrs. South Africa and how it's transformed her, how it's a journey of self-discovery. I didn't even know about Mrs. South Africa at the time. But she was just talking about the journey, and I could almost see, I walked the journey with her really from outside, watching her go into Mrs. World, because she represented the country on Mrs. World platform. And I saw her tears, I saw her joy, her laughter, I saw this
I'm getting
flower.
Goosebumps even just
Literally,
listening to you.
I saw this flower that was just blossoming. And I think for me at that time in my life, I was at a place where I felt like, my life is just stagnant. But there was just something inside me that said, Carol, there's so much bigger, and I just didn't know what to do. What do I touch? You're comfortable, you're in a comfortable space. Business is really just stable. It's not, but it's stable. You're comfortable. My marriage was a little bit, I think sometimes when you're not happy, you just make everybody miserable. So I was like, in a bit of an awkward space with my husband, and I just wanted to do something. And then there I was looking at this girl, and I was like, what is that? And then I was like, what is Mrs. South Africa? And I remember telling my daughter, I'm like, I wanted to enter Mrs. South Africa. And then she's getting married, and I'm like, okay, we need to concentrate. Wedding. This is what we
And you really concentrated. That was my favorite content for me, the wedding content. I think I saw this one video where, because obviously I don't know, what do you call it? Is she your sister-in-law?
Which one?
Is she the mother of your son-in-law? That's your what-in-law? Your mommy-in-law?
The mother
your co-mommy?
No, we are friends.
Oh, okay.
Oh,
okay.
Yeah, we're friends.
Okay.
Yeah.
So yes, I was watching this video. I think you guys were doing dress fittings.
Yes,
and
yes.
You were teaching her how to
Mazwale.
Hey,
I actually saw it that it was on my Facebook as 2 years ago.
Yeah.
A memory of some sort. I was like laughing at it, watching the video, like, hele Mazwale.
And I looked at it and I was like, the boldness of this woman. I could never. I'm like, you're literally, and then after the whole performance, and she's just kind of standing there like, okay, this is like very new for me. And you're like, okay, so everything that I just did now, this is what it means. Leave the pots. The owner of the pots is now here. And this is how the culture is. And I love how you've just sort of managed to blend the two cultures in a way that's not very like forceful, but also like you can tell that you're teaching in love.
Yeah.
Like everything that you are doing comes from a place of, I want us to be one whole unit and operate as a family.
It was really I think the first time when I heard my daughter says, I'm ready to get married, I was like taken aback. I was like, what? Like, we're not there yet. I'm trying to see, how sometimes we would have certain conditions, even on our children, in terms of how life needs to flow.
Yes.
You study, you just graduate, you need to get a job,
a
you need
house.
Then you can start, and it didn't work that way, and I'm really thankful to God. But I think bringing the families together for me, we wanted it to be so authentic and so
really
real
was.
in terms of bringing in the Setswana tradition. I'm Bedi, my husband is Tswana. I don't really know much about Tswana, because when I got married, it was in a Bedi way of doing things. So now, in a way, I also had to learn, and it was really interesting to be able to learn and then transfer that knowledge immediately to the Pretorius family. We were going back and forth. Really, with my friend Pastor Shanae, like there were some Saturdays we would call one another, like, what did you say to them? And we're like, yeah. No, apparently it's not that. It's supposed to be like this. And then, we were just going, back and forth with it. But it was really lovely we were also doing it during the pandemic, literally hard lockdown. I remember when they wanted to to come for the first negotiations of Lobola, it was impossible because it was
you
locked
did it
down.
over Zoom.
We actually did it over Zoom ultimately, and it went so beautifully as if it was actually in real life. I mean, we didn't compromise on anything, on literally making sure that the process proceeds. They need to see the flowers that are available in the family. They need to pick which one is theirs. They need to. So all of that happened really over Zoom. Over 3 provinces, Northwest Limpopo and Gauteng connecting, because, you know, they are uncles that side and you have Rakhadis on the other side and all of that. And it really happened so beautifully, so lovely. So it was lovely to walk that journey with my daughter and to walk that journey with the other family and trying to infuse. And they were really, you know, flexible, adaptable to also want to come on board and really just make sure that, you know, everything works smoothly. And I think that's what is required, especially from parents when kids are now trying to get married, that, you know, you do not become a stumbling block to, you know, this wonderful union that needs to happen. Because I think at the end of the day, we know, especially when it comes to issues of negotiations and stuff, that your parents can come in, it can get messy, it can get, you know, complicated, and people trying to impose themselves. But it was really just easy and it flowed so simply. My uncles were super awesome in trying to facilitate the entire process. So it was really lovely to blend the two families. The Pretorians make it so easy. I think we made it very easy for them as well.
It looked very easy.
I wanted complicated stuff. We you know, I was saying that they're fortunate that it was not on the Pedi way of doing things,
because you would have.
I mean, this whole thing of saying that, you know, when you're by the gate in Zwana way, it's visitors. You need to welcome them in. There is no paying of anything while you're by the gate.
The vulamlomo.
Yes, the vulamlomo type of a thing. When you're at the gate, we start asking you stuff. So it was great. So there was 2020. I think that's where the seed of Mrs. South Africa was planted. But, you know, obviously we didn't do anything then. And then in 2021, I remember during, you know, the women, because I did a whole series of Women 31 Network in August last year. And I was calling on women to talk to, you know, a place in their lives that really redefined who they are in some way, to share of their stories, really. And I think for me, that's possibly where it kind of began, in terms of me walking through the journey of working through me and whatever hurts and whatever pain, to try and see how do you show up in the world. And it was at that time as well that I felt like, you know, Mrs. South Africa, it kept on just being at the back of my mind. Remember, you wanted, do you remember? And it was only in 2022
that you decided.
Because I think the applications for Mrs. South Africa opened somewhere in October 2021, and, you know, it was a very lengthy process. The form, I don't remember, was 7 pages or something like that. They
7 pages.
I think it's somewhere there that they really want to get to know, obviously, who this person is. We were still during lockdown in certain, you know, there were still certain restrictions, so it was not easy to also have, like, you know, masses that will come and, you know, they do the whole, you know, who are you type of a thing. So we had to complete the forms. There was a video that we needed to submit on YouTube about us, who we are, like, you know, just a simple introductory, you know, your head and shoulder, you know, type of a high image photo of yourself, a full length photo as well. So I mean, like I said, if I look at those photos and the Carol right now, they are totally two different people.
And how would you say you've, like, changed as a person over the process?
There's so many things. One, learning vulnerability, that to be vulnerable, it's power. I think I'm one of those people that, you know, I don't want to say control freak, but I like to manage, be in control, right? I want to be in control. I control, you know, I'm in control of my own destiny. Nothing can break me, type of a thing. You want to come up with is really tough. And sometimes you hardly ask, you know, for assistance. You hardly say, you know what, Carol, no, you can't do this. Embrace your weakness in a certain way of really coming to a place of, but you need help, ask for it. I think it's one of the things that I've really learned. I've also learned to articulate and narrate and go back to that place when I was a teen mom, to really learn and harness the lessons from that entire experience and how those lessons made me the person that I am today. How do I come, or how do I show up? How did I show up after the effect, so many things. And I always say this, that when I was announced, when the Mrs. South Africa said, congratulations, Carol, you are one of the Mrs. South Africa semi-finalists. So the entire South Africa, there were these 100 women and you are one of the 100 women that were selected. I was, like I said, I wanted to run at that time because I felt inadequate. Like, no, Carol, umzalwane, married, costume in the middle, everywhere. What's on earth? That there were so many things that I was just imposing on myself that was so negative. And sometimes I think that's what we do to ourselves. That it was just that, but this journey allowed me to go back to the room. So I went back to Limpopo and I wanted to enter into that room where for the longest time I was hidden. For the longest time I had no voice. For the longest time I had experienced such trauma, because I think that's, you do experience trauma, rejection, abandonment in that place. So I needed to go back. And it was so empowering. I entered that room. I sat on that bed. I remember there's so many pictures that I've taken. I'm yet to share on social media. I haven't done that. So it's I slept. I literally mimicked every little bit of every way that I can possibly think of how I used to be when I was in that room, how I used to really say, God, rescue me from this situation. Because the girl that used to be outside there energetic, you were like, girl, the sweet 16, the 16 valve, whatever they used to call it in those days, but you were the it girl. And then now all of a sudden, no more. Literally, and you are silent and you are in that corner. So this journey really allowed me to go there, not as a victim, not going to the past. And I think sometimes we are held back by our past when we start thinking about our mistakes and we start thinking about, you don't know what I've done. Really, if you knew what I've done, you wouldn't ask me for anything. And then we are held back and we rather just sit in the comfortable. What I've learned as well is to walk, and for me, I call it a journey of faith over and over and over again, being on Mrs. South Africa, because even when I decided I'm going to sign on the dotted line, because there's contracts to be signed to say I am a Mrs. South Africa semi-finalist, and I was like signing before I could sign. God gave me this word in Genesis. Is it Genesis chapter 12, where God spoke to Abraham, leave your country and your people and go to the place that I will show you. I had to, in my mind, leave all of you. I had to leave your opinions of me. I had to leave what you think.
I need a
what
notebook
you
now.
will think of me.
I
had to leave my husband. I had to leave every voice. I had to leave the comfort and choose to go to a place that I didn't know, because I was fearful. I don't know what I'm getting myself into. I don't know what you want me to do, God. And sometimes we can become so paralyzed by things like that. I don't know what to do. This fear of, I don't know what this is about. I had to leave all of that. I had to make a choice that right then and there that you're going to trust God and just go. When I introduced myself, it was lovely. Yay, you are Mrs. South Africa semi-finalist.
love you.
And then I said, and I come from that street down the road there by police station, and they went,
it can't
everybody, everybody just went into a corner of some sort.
That.
And I was like, we can rise up from whatever that could have held us back and become everything that we know we were purposed to be.
How can we contribute to your journey and everything that you're doing as Mrs. South Africa, support you and so on and so forth?
The voting continues. I think, that's one way of really supporting me. I think there was a time I was even posting on my WhatsApp status to say, here's how you can, support.
And you're a WhatsApp influencer. Hey.
Yes. Here's how you can support me. So the first thing is obviously by voting. There is a title, obviously, on the line. So SMSing Carol Montwedi to 47587.
47587.
Carol Montwedi, no space, the space between Carol and Montwedi. No any whatever, what do they call it, spelling mistakes, because then it's like, I mean, sometimes we get the reports on a monthly basis and there's so many spoiled votes. And I mean, I remember at some point when we went to zone into the spoiled votes, it was like Carol with double L and all of that.
Man.
And unfortunately, it's a spoiled vote. So it's Carol, Carol Montwedi, Montwedi, to 47587. And then also Mrs. South Africa and Carol, we've collaborated on one post where you can go and like my photo. I think it's one of those where I'm like, yeah, so that is where you can like my photo. I'll really appreciate that. But then, you know, the other way, I always say that, you know, I know some people will screen grab. Some people will also ask me for that photo so that they can also put in on their own statuses and their own stories. I really appreciate that because it also encourages me, you know, to know that you stand by me. I know posts are just there for 24 hours and they're gone. But, you know, when you have that photo, perhaps, you know, continuously. I mean, the crowning is only in November, the 11th, Friday, the 11th of November, when we will be crowning Mrs. South Africa 2023. So we're voting up until then. So continuously just putting it on the status, that is one of the ways. And also, you know, do shout out and say something. It really helps because sometimes it can be a very lonely journey. But yeah, thank you. And I appreciate your support, everybody.
Yes.
It's been lovely. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Lovely. And if you've been impacted by this episode, please make sure that you do go ahead and follow her on social media. All of her details will be in the description box below in terms of email, how you can become her gold sponsor partner if you are Mr. Moneybags or your dad is Mr. Moneybags. Talk to your dad, please, okay? We need to get Auntie Carol onto that stage. But yeah, that's it from us. You can keep up with her on her social media to find out how the journey unfolds. But for episode 1 of I Bags Her, it's been Mrs. Carol Montwedi.
Yay.
See you next time.
Thank
Cheers.
you. Bye.
Comment of the week goes to